Hi, my name is Michelle. In this video, we are going to talk about exactly how much money you need before you retire. And who am I to tell you all this? I kind of have done this by myself. So in this video, I want to share with you what tools I use and what kind of formula I use. In reality, it is really hard to know exactly how much you need to retire because all of us, we have different lifestyle. For example, do you fly economy? Do you fly comfort plus? Do you fly business class when you travel? Or what kind of place you shop for groceries? Or what kind of apartment you live in? Do you rent or do you own? Do you share your room with a roommate? So all that kinds of thing will change how much you need to retire. In this video, I am gonna give you two very practical examples for living situation as a single person in Seattle. So this is more Seattle specific. Seattle is a pretty expensive city. I feel it's similar to New York, Boston, and California. So if you're able to sustain yourself in Seattle, you can pretty much live everywhere you want. At least that's how I think. Before we dive into the number, I also want to mention that if you currently have any debt that's interest is higher than 7 or 8%, you should absolutely try to pay off your debt first because those debt and compound interest, they will really slow you down in this financial journey. So you need to pay off debt first before you can even start this financial independence journey. All right, let's dive into the numbers. So the first example I have right here is a quite a moderate and humble lifestyle in Seattle, which will cost around $60,000 a year as a living expense. And how did I come up with that number? $60,000 a year is roughly $5,000 a month. I think that is quite a reasonable number for like a single person who rented a one-bedroom apartment that might cost maybe around 2,000. Again, these numbers can vary widely depending on your personal choice and lifestyle. But I'm trying to give you an example, right? So one bedroom apartment, let's say it costs $2,000, and then you need to get groceries, you eat out, you hang out with friends, you have car insurance, or maybe you have car payment. You have all these other expense, you have subscription. So all the other stuff, I'm estimating 3,000 a month, which I think it could be on the high end, but you also need to estimate some unexpected things in life too. So $5,000 a month, that come up to around $60,000 a year. $60,000 a year of expense. So how much you need to save up in order for you to fund this $60,000 of living expense? My calculation, again, I am not a financial advisor, but this is how I come up with my personal number, and I think this should be able to give you a good guideline or principle about what kind of numbers you're working towards, and then you can work backwards to how much you need to save monthly or bi-weekly in order to reach your goal. I am estimating you are putting all your money in S&P 500 fund, which historically it will give you 8% return annually. So in order for you to get 60K a year with around 8% return, you need 60,000 divided by 8%. That is 750K. 750K in S&P 500 with 8% annual return. That will yield 60K a year of living expense while you're doing nothing. This formula definitely have its downside because in reality the market fluctuates so wide. It can go up 20% a year, but it can also go down like 15% a year. But over time, if you look at historic data, S&P 500 in the long term, let's use a more conservative calculation, it typically yield about 8%. When you use this method, I will recommend, let's say you already have 750K in S&P 500. How do you actually make it work? For me, I actually will put my first year living expense aside too. All right, so 750K, that is one example. I want to give you another example of lifestyle that is a bit more maybe comfortable. Maybe you like to travel a bit more, or you like to buy more premium stuff. So you might need a little more expense than just 5,000 a month estimated. So the other example that I have is maybe you need 8,000 a month instead of 5,000. So that's 3,000 difference. 8,000 a month, that will yield to 96K a year. So roughly 100K a year. With 96K a year, still same circumstance. You put all your assets in S&P 500, which yield 8% annual return. 96K a year divided 8%, that return back to 1.2 million. If you have 1.2 million saved up and they're all in S&P 500 index fund that yield 8% return, it will give you 96K a year. In reality, I want to provide you this formula because I don't know how you live. I don't know how much money you need. Some people need a lot of savings and they like to spend. So some people, they feel safer with maybe 96K a year. Like some people might even need more. Some people, maybe you need less than 60K, right? Maybe you live in a little more affordable area in the broader Seattle or Washington area that the rent is a lot less. And these numbers also doesn't include, let's say if you own a home, right? If you own a home and if there are mortgages, obviously your expense will be higher. So that's the other thing about whether you should buy a home or you keep renting. In our generation, I think it is really hard. Like if you buy a home, if you're buying a home with a partner, I think that will also have a very different picture. Let's say your partner also contribute financially. Then you and your partner can both put down payment and mortgage together. Over time, both of you will benefit from that appreciation of the assets. If you're alone and you're trying to buy a home, which is almost impossible for a lot of young individuals because the home price is just really expensive, especially if you want to buy single family home that typically appreciate more over time compared to condos or apartments. If you are buying a home, like your mortgage will be absolutely higher than 2,000 or 3,000. I'm gonna make that assumption. So let's say if you need to pay mortgage, you need to put that all into your consideration about how much you need per month to sustain your lifestyle. So when you buy a home, it probably means you need a lot more than 1.2 million in your savings because you also have more expense. So the above two example, right? Like a moderate lifestyle of you need 750K and something more comfortable lifestyle, you need 1.2 million. These numbers are merely, it's a guiding principle. It's not that, okay, you have 750K, you can retire immediately. I think there are a lot of other things you need to take into consideration. There's also about how old are you, right? If you're younger like me, which I don't think I'm not too old yet. If you're younger, let's say you're like younger than 50 years old, it's also possible, like when you reach these of your personal financial freedom milestone, when you retire, quote, quote, you might still do something else that supplement your income. You're not really just retire, and you never gonna do anything again. So you should also keep that in mind about, okay, once you reach this milestone, do you have some other passion or interest you want to do? Maybe you're a software engineer and you want to make your own app, right? Or maybe you want to become a consultant, you want to start your own little business that maybe over time it will yield you some additional income that supplement your original living expense. You should take all of those into consideration when you think about what exactly is your number. And on top of that, you definitely need to keep in mind that this 8% annual return, again, it's not linear. You are gonna have years where your portfolio down 20%. Are you able to sustain through that? For me, currently what I'm doing is I just withdraw my 1 year of living expense in advance and I put them in a money market fund. By doing that, at least it provides me some sort of security, because regardless of how the portfolio goes up and down, I know my next year's living expense is there. It's in the money market fund. It's not gonna move. It gives me like 3 or 4% interest rate. That gives me security. So I would encourage you to do something similar too. Once you reach your personal goal, start, like if your job is okay, if it's not, if you don't hate your job, you don't mind working a little longer, I would say have at least 1 more year of living expense put aside. Some people call that emergency fund. I mean, yeah, like it really depends on your risk tolerance. But for me, I will recommend, yes, on top of that 1 year living expense, put 1 year living expense aside in money market fund or some very low risk. You can even put them in savings, even though it doesn't give you any interest. It's fine because it's only there for a year. That will provide you this additional psychological safety net that regardless of how the market is doing, you know you're gonna be okay, at least for a year. Like you have the money stack up on the side. All right, that's all I have for today. I hope the information is informative and helpful for you to reach your financial freedom journey. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you on the next one.